I spent 12 years turning a homeless kid into a millionaire, gave him everything, my money, my knowledge, my life. Today, at his award ceremony, he looked me in the eye and told the world I was useless and contributed nothing. The room applauded while I stood there, destroyed. But Marcus doesn't know I recorded everything, every promise, every lesson he's now selling as his own. What I'm about to do will destroy his empire. Should I expose him or let it go? Stay with me, because revenge has never looked like this. She stood in the back of the conference room, her hands trembling as Marcus walked to the stage. The audience rose in standing ovation. Flashbulbs exploded like tiny suns. She wanted to feel proud, but something in her chest felt tight, uncertain. This was supposed to be their moment. She had ironed her best dress that morning, the same one she'd worn for 5 years. She'd practiced smiling in the mirror, rehearsing what she'd say when people asked about her role in his success. The reporter's voice cut through the applause. "Marcus, who helped you get here? Was there anyone instrumental in your journey?" She held her breath. Her heart pounded so loudly, she thought the people around her could hear it. Marcus smiled, that charming smile, the one that once made her believe every promise he'd ever made. He adjusted the microphone, looking comfortable under the lights, like he'd been born for this moment. "Honestly," he said, his voice smooth and confident, "I did this alone. The people around me in the early days, they meant well, but they were more obstacles than help." She felt the room tilt slightly. "Especially my former mentor," he continued, his eyes scanning the crowd but never landing on her. She was just there, filling space, useless really. The room erupted in laughter, polite, approving laughter. Someone near her nodded knowingly. Her knees buckled. She grabbed the back of a chair to steady herself. 12 years of sacrifice dismissed in 15 seconds. 12 years reduced to a punchline. She looked around. No one was watching her. Everyone's eyes were on him, on his success, on the golden trophy in his hands. Her vision blurred. She couldn't breathe properly. The walls seemed to close in. She turned and walked toward the exit, trying to keep her steps steady, her head high. But the moment she pushed through the double doors into the empty hallway, her composure shattered. She stumbled to the elevator, her hand shaking as she pressed the button. Once inside, alone, she leaned against the cold metal wall and let the tears come. Her phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. "Sorry if that was awkward. Hope you understand. Business is business." She stared at those words until they blurred. Business is business, as if 12 years of her life were just a transaction he could write off. Something shifted inside her then, something quiet but unmistakable. The hurt began to crystallize into something else, something sharper. She wiped her tears and opened her phone's voice recorder. She scrolled through old files, old conversations, old promises. Everything was still there. Every word he'd ever said, every promise he'd made before success changed him. And for the first time in 12 years, she wondered what would happen if the world knew the truth. She first saw Marcus on a cold October morning in 2012, curled up in the back seat of a rusted Honda Civic parked outside the community center. He was 19, all sharp angles and hollow cheeks, wearing a jacket too thin for the weather. When she arrived to unlock the building for her free business workshop, he was already awake, scribbling furiously in a worn notebook. She watched him for a moment through her car window. There was something desperate in the way he wrote, like he was racing against time itself. When he noticed her watching, he quickly closed the notebook and climbed out of the car. His movements were stiff, like he'd been sleeping there for days. "Are you here for the workshop?" she asked. He nodded, shoving his hands deep into his pockets. "If that's okay. It's free. Everyone's welcome." During the session, while others half listened and checked their phones, Marcus absorbed every word. He took notes in tiny, cramped handwriting, filling page after page. When she spoke about negotiation tactics, his pen moved faster. When she mentioned her own failed startup, he looked up, something like recognition flickering in his eyes. After everyone left, he lingered by the door. "Can I ask you something?" His voice was quiet, careful. Of course." "How do you start over after you've lost everything?" The question hit her harder than she expected. She was 34, divorced, childless, living on what little remained from her settlement. She knew exactly what losing everything felt like. "You start small," she said. and you find someone who believes in you. He looked down at his notebook. I don't have anyone. She should have said something encouraging and sent him on his way. Instead, she heard herself ask, Where are you staying? His silence was answer enough. That night, she gave him her spare room. It was small, barely furnished, but when he stepped inside, he looked at it like it was a palace. I'll pay you back, he said, his voice breaking slightly. I promise. One day, I'm going to make this right. Just focus on learning, she replied. Over the following weeks, she taught him everything she knew. Late nights at her kitchen table, sharing cheap meals, breaking down business principles into simple terms. He absorbed it all with an intensity that both impressed and worried her. One night, after a particularly long session, he looked at her with tears in his eyes. You're my guardian angel, he whispered. I won't forget this, ever. She believed him. She wanted so badly to believe him. But as she watched him fall asleep on her couch that night, notebook still clutched in his hands, a small voice in the back of her mind whispered a question she couldn't quite silence. What happens when angels stop being useful? For 3 years, she became invisible. She worked the dinner shift at Romano's downtown, smiling through grease-stained aprons and aching feet. After closing at midnight, she'd drive to the office complex on 5th Street and clean until dawn. Her back screamed by the 3rd floor. Her hands cracked from chemicals. One Saturday night, while scrubbing a conference room toilet, she heard a voice behind her. Sarah? She looked up. Jennifer Chen. They'd pitched to investors together 5 years ago, back when she still had a company, back when her name meant something. Jennifer's eyes traveled from the toilet brush to her uniform, her face shifting from recognition to pity. I didn't know you were, Jennifer trailed off. It's temporary, she lied. Jennifer nodded too quickly and left. The silence after felt heavier than the shame. But when she got home at 6 a.m. and saw Marcus at the kitchen table, papers spread everywhere, practicing his pitch with fierce concentration, she told herself it was worth it. Listen to this, he said, not looking up. What if we pivoted the user interface to focus on mobile-first design? She sat down, ignoring her exhaustion. Show me. They worked until noon. She printed materials at the library because they couldn't afford internet. She used her employee meal vouchers to feed them both. She never complained. One day, Marcus said, squeezing her hand, I'm going to pay you back 1,000 times over. I swear it. She believed him. She needed to believe him. When his first startup failed 8 months later, she found him on the bathroom floor, sobbing into his hands. I'm sorry, he choked out. I wasted everything, your time, your money, your faith in me. She held him until he stopped shaking. That night, while he slept, she took her mother's jewelry from the drawer. The pearl necklace her mother wore on her wedding day. The gold bracelet passed down 3 generations. She sold them the next morning. $2,300. Where did you get this? Marcus asked when she handed him the cash. Savings I forgot about, she said. We try again. His face lit up with hope, and she felt something crack inside her chest. Her sister called that evening. You sold Mom's jewelry, didn't you? Silence. Sarah, you're destroying yourself for a stranger. He's not your son. He's not your responsibility. He needs me. And what do you need? When does someone take care of you? She hung up. Her sister didn't call back. They didn't speak for 2 years. Late that night, she stood in her empty bedroom, touching the bare spot on her dresser where her mother's jewelry box used to sit. Marcus was already asleep in the spare room, dreaming of his next venture. And she wondered, just for a moment, if there would ever come a day when she'd have nothing left to give. By 2017, everything changed. Marcus's second startup, a platform connecting freelancers with remote work, started gaining traction. Downloads climbed from hundreds to thousands to tens of thousands in weeks. She watched it happen from their small apartment, her phone lighting up with notifications every time someone mentioned his app online. What Marcus didn't tell people was that the framework, the entire foundational structure, came from her. Years ago, during her own failed venture, she'd developed a system for matching skills with opportunities. She'd documented everything in a thick binder that collected dust after her company collapsed. One night, Marcus had asked if he could look through it. Take whatever helps, she'd said. It's just sitting there anyway. He built his entire platform on her blueprint. She never asked for credit. She just wanted him to succeed. And now he was succeeding beyond either of their wildest dreams. Investment offers flooded in. Marcus spent days on phone calls with venture capitalists, his voice growing more confident with each conversation. Then came the day he signed the deal. $1 million. He burst through the apartment door holding a bottle of cheap champagne, the only kind they could afford. "We did it!" He pulled her into a hug, spinning her around. She laughed, feeling lighter than she had in years. "You did it. I just helped." He stopped spinning, looking at her with sudden intensity. "Don't say that. Don't ever say that. Without you, I'm nothing. Everything I built came from you." Her eyes stung with unexpected tears. "I'm going to make you a partner," he continued, gripping her shoulders. "I'm putting your name on everything. You're going to get what you deserve." She believed him. God, she believed him. 2 weeks later, the contracts arrived, thick stacks of legal documents with official seals and signatures. She flipped through them carefully, searching for her name. It wasn't there. When Marcus came home that evening, she was sitting at the kitchen table, the contracts spread in front of her. "Where's my name?" she asked quietly. He froze, then his expression shifted to something apologetic, almost irritated. "The lawyers said it's complicated with the investors. They want a clean cap table. Adding partners now creates tax issues, equity problems." He spoke quickly, like he'd rehearsed it. "We'll fix it later, I promise." Later never came. Within a month, Marcus moved into a luxury apartment downtown. Hardwood floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of the city skyline. She helped him pack, then went back to their old apartment alone. That night, she worked her shift at the restaurant, came home at midnight to an empty, quiet space, opened her laptop and saw Marcus's face on a tech blog. "Young entrepreneur disrupts freelance industry." The article didn't mention her name once. She closed the laptop and sat in the dark. Somewhere across the city, in his new apartment with his $1 million deal, Marcus was probably celebrating, and she wondered when exactly we had become he. Marcus changed in ways she didn't see coming. The thrift store clothes disappeared first, replaced by tailored suits that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His hair was professionally styled now. His shoes shined like mirrors. When she called, he was always in a meeting, always about to jump on another call. Always somewhere she couldn't reach. Their weekly dinners, the ones they'd shared for 5 years, became monthly. Then every few months. Then nothing at all. She told herself he was busy. Success required sacrifice. She understood that. But understanding didn't make the silence easier. One evening, Marcus invited her to a company event at a hotel downtown. She wore her best dress, the same one from the award ceremony, and felt immediately out of place. Everyone else looked expensive, confident, like they belonged in rooms with crystal chandeliers and waiters carrying champagne on silver trays. She stood in a corner, watching Marcus move through the crowd like he'd been doing it his whole life. Handshakes, laughter, the easy charm of someone who'd never slept in a car or scrubbed toilets to survive. A woman in a designer dress approached her, smiling politely. "How do you know Marcus?" Before she could answer, Marcus appeared at her side. "Oh, she helped out early on," he said smoothly, barely glancing at her. "Did some admin stuff." Admin stuff. The words hit her like a slap. 5 years reduced to filing papers. The woman nodded, already losing interest, and Marcus guided her away to meet someone more important. She stood there, champagne glass trembling in her hand, feeling invisible. Later that night, she waited outside the venue until the event ended. When Marcus finally emerged, laughing with a group of investors, she called his name. He excused himself and walked over, checking his watch. "What's up? I have an early meeting tomorrow." "Why did you say that?" Her voice was quiet, controlled. "Admin stuff?" He sighed, that flash of annoyance crossing his face. "What did you want me to say? That I lived with you? That I was basically homeless and you took me in?" "I wanted you to tell the truth." "The truth makes me look weak," he said, his tone sharp now. "You don't understand this world. Image is everything. These people invest in winners, not charity cases." "I'm not asking you to call yourself a charity case. I'm asking you to acknowledge what I did for you." He looked at her like she was being unreasonable. "I appreciate everything you did, but that was years ago. I need to focus on the future now, not the past. The past. That's what she'd become to him. He checked his phone, already distracted. Look, I really have to go. We'll catch up soon, okay? He didn't wait for her answer. She went home and cried for hours, sitting on her bathroom floor, the same floor where she'd once held him while he sobbed over his first failure. But she didn't call him out publicly, didn't make a scene, didn't tell anyone how much it hurt. She stayed silent because despite everything, she still didn't want to ruin his success. And that silence, she was beginning to realize, might be the biggest mistake she'd ever made. In 2023, Marcus launched his third company. She saw the announcement on LinkedIn. Marcus Chen Consulting. Learn the revolutionary method that built $1 million empire. Revolutionary method. Her chest tightened. She clicked through the website, read the testimonials, watched the promotional video where Marcus, now polished and confident, spoke directly to the camera. I developed a unique framework for entrepreneurial success, he said. A system I refined through years of trial and error. Every word he spoke, she had taught him. The seminar cost $10,000 per client. She registered under a different name and showed up on opening day, sitting in the back row of a hotel conference room filled with eager entrepreneurs. Marcus took the stage in an expensive suit, his presence commanding, his smile wide. Success isn't about luck, he began. It's about strategy. Let me share the 5 principles that changed my life. Principle 1. Start with empathy, not product. She had told him that on their third night together, over microwaved leftovers at her kitchen table. Principle 2. Build systems, not just businesses. Her words, verbatim, from a lesson she'd written out by hand because they couldn't afford to print it. Principle 3. Failure is data, not defeat. She'd whispered that to him while he cried on her bathroom floor after his first startup collapsed. He went through all 5 principles, each one a piece of her, repackaged and sold as his own revelations. The audience took notes furiously, hanging on his every word. When the seminar ended, she waited until most people had left, then approached him. Marcus. He turned, his smile faltering for just a moment when he recognized her. Sarah. Wow, I didn't know you were here. That's my material, she said quietly. Everything you just taught came from me. He glanced around, checking if anyone was listening, then pulled her aside. Look, he said, his voice low and irritated. Ideas aren't copyrighted, you know that. I'm not talking about copyright, I'm talking about honesty. He laughed, but there was no warmth in it. Besides, I improved on what you taught me. I made it actually work. You couldn't even keep your own company alive. The words landed like a punch. This wasn't the boy she'd saved. This wasn't the kid who'd slept in his car and called her his guardian angel. This was a stranger wearing his face, using her voice, profiting from her pain. You should be happy, he continued. Your ideas are finally succeeding, just not with you. He walked away, back to his next group of clients, leaving her standing alone in the empty conference room. That night, she sat at her laptop and opened her email archives. She searched for his name. Thousands of messages appeared. She opened her photo library. Years of pictures, them working at her kitchen table, him holding his first business plan, late nights at the library. She found old text messages, voice memos where he thanked her, promised her, called her irreplaceable. She didn't know yet what she would do with all of it, but something had shifted. The hurt was hardening into something sharper, something purposeful. She began creating folders, organizing evidence, building a timeline. And for the first time in 12 years, she wasn't thinking about protecting him anymore. The invitation arrived 3 weeks before the ceremony. Formal, embossed, her name written in elegant script. You are cordially invited to the Visionary Entrepreneur Awards Gala. Marcus had handwritten a note at the bottom. Would mean a lot if you came. She held that note for a long time, reading it over and over, trying to find hope in those 7 words. Maybe this was it. Maybe after everything, he was finally going to acknowledge her, publicly, in front of everyone who mattered. She bought new shoes, spent money she didn't have. Her dress was 5 years old, but she dry cleaned it, pressed it carefully, told herself it would be enough. The night of the ceremony, she arrived early. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers and camera crews. Media from 3 countries had shown up. This was bigger than anything Marcus had done before. She found her seat in the back, far from the stage, far from the important people. When Marcus walked to the podium to accept his award, the room erupted in applause. He looked like he belonged there, bathed in spotlight, holding his trophy, smiling that smile she used to believe in. The reporter's question cut through the applause. "Marcus, who helped you get here? Was there anyone instrumental in your journey?" She held her breath. Her hands gripped the edge of her seat. This was the moment. Marcus adjusted the microphone, his expression thoughtful, humble. "Honestly, I did this alone. The people around me in the early days, they meant well, but they were more obstacles than help." Her heart stopped. Especially my former mentor. She was just there, filling space. Useless, really. The room laughed, appreciative, entertained. Someone at the table in front of her turned and whispered to their companion, "That's her. In the back. That's the mentor he's talking about." The other person glanced back, their expression a mix of pity and contempt. "Wow, she looks bitter." Everything blurred. The lights, the faces, the applause that wouldn't stop. She stood, her legs barely holding her, and walked toward the exit. No one noticed. Everyone's eyes were still on Marcus, on his success, on his perfectly crafted story that erased her completely. She made it to the parking garage before the tears came, sat in her car and screamed until her throat burned, until her voice gave out, until there was nothing left but silence and the echo of laughter from the ballroom above. Her phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. "Sorry if that was awkward. Hope you understand. Business is business." She stared at those words until they stopped making sense. Business is business. 12 years, her savings, her mother's jewelry, her pride, her faith, all of it reduced to an awkward moment he apologized for with a text message. Something shifted inside her then. The hurt that had lived in her chest for years crystallized into something harder, clearer, sharper. He'd used her, drained her, and now he wanted her to disappear quietly, to fade into the background of his success story like she'd never mattered at all. But she'd spent 12 years being quiet, and she was done. For 2 weeks, she barely slept. Her apartment became a war room. Laptop open on the kitchen table, documents spread across every surface, old photos taped to the walls like evidence in a crime drama. She organized everything chronologically, built a timeline that showed exactly who Marcus was before success and who he became after. She registered a domain, therealmarcusstory.com. The homepage was simple, just one sentence at the top. "This is the truth about Marcus Chen." Then she began uploading. Screenshots of text messages where he called her his only family, his guardian angel, the person who saved my life. Videos from the early days, grainy phone footage of them working at her kitchen table, Marcus practicing pitches while she gave feedback, encouraged him, believed in him. The framework documents, her name clearly visible at the top, dated years before his first successful company, bank statements showing transfers from her account to his, receipts from when she sold her mother's jewelry, proof that she'd funded his dreams with everything she had. Testimony from people who'd witnessed their relationship, her former workshop students, the librarian who remembered them printing materials for free, even her sister who finally answered her call and gave a statement about the jewelry. She wrote the truth. Not with anger or vindictiveness, but with facts. Simple, undeniable facts. It took her 3 days to finish the website, 3 more to check every detail, every source, making sure everything was airtight. On the 13th day, she sat at her laptop with a list of email addresses. Every journalist who'd covered his award, every investor in his companies, every client who'd paid $10,000 for his method. Her finger hovered over the send button. This would change everything. Once she did this, there was no going back. She thought about the boy who'd slept in his car, the kid who'd cried on her bathroom floor, the person she'd believed in when no one else would. Then she thought about his words at the award ceremony. Useless. Just there. Obstacles. She pressed send. She also sent the link directly to Marcus with one message. You called me useless. Let's let the world decide. For the first hour, nothing happened. Then her phone started buzzing. Notifications, shares, comments. A journalist from TechCrunch reached out within 2 hours. Can we verify this story? By hour 4, it was trending on Twitter. By evening, major news outlets had picked it up. Tech entrepreneur accused of stealing mentor's work and life savings. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing. She turned it off. She sat in her dark apartment, listening to the silence, feeling strangely empty. Somewhere across the city, Marcus's phone was probably ringing too. His investors, his clients, his lawyers. She wondered what he was thinking right now, if he was scared, if he was angry. If he finally understood what it felt like to have your entire world dismantled in a single moment. Her phone, even turned off, felt heavy in her hand, and she realized she didn't know what came next. Within 48 hours, Marcus issued a statement. Recent allegations by a former acquaintance are deeply troubling and inaccurate. This individual has demonstrated unstable behavior and appears to be obsessed with discrediting my success. I'm exploring legal options. She read it 3 times, feeling nothing but a strange, distant calm. Unstable, obsessed. But the evidence didn't care what he called her. His investors started asking questions, demanding meetings, reviewing contracts. Clients who'd paid $10,000 for his method began requesting refunds, realizing they'd been sold someone else's wisdom. Within a week, his company's board asked him to step down pending an internal investigation. Her phone rang at 2 a.m. on the 8th day. Marcus. She stared at his name on the screen for a long time before answering. Why? His voice was shaking, broken. Why would you destroy me? After everything you destroyed in me, you mean? She kept her voice steady. My savings, my reputation, my faith in people. 12 years of my life reduced to a punchline at your award ceremony. I didn't mean, you don't get to be the victim here, Marcus. Silence. Then the sound of him crying. I'm sorry, he choked out. I'm so sorry. I'll make it right. I'll give you credit. I'll pay you back. Just please, take down the website. I'll do anything. It's too late for anything. Please. I'm losing everything. She closed her eyes. Part of her, a small part, still remembered the 19-year-old kid sleeping in his car, but that kid was gone. Maybe he'd never really existed. I didn't build that website for revenge, she said quietly. I built it for truth. And the truth is, you used me and then erased me. That's on you, not me. She hung up. Marcus lost his company within a month. His consulting firm dissolved. His reputation, built on stolen wisdom, crumbled under scrutiny. She didn't gloat, didn't celebrate. She just moved forward. 6 months later, she started running workshops again, small groups at the community center where she'd first met Marcus. But this time, her lessons were different. Never sacrifice yourself completely for someone else's dream, she told her students. Help people, mentor them, believe in them, but never disappear in the process. A young woman in the front row raised her hand. Do you regret it? The 12 years you spent helping him? She thought about that question carefully. No, she said finally. Those 12 years taught me something invaluable. My worth isn't measured by someone else's gratitude. It's measured by my own integrity. And I can live with who I am. The room was quiet. Canny? Someone asked. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. After the workshop, as she packed up her materials, her phone buzzed. An email from a young entrepreneur asking for mentorship. She smiled, started typing a response. Because despite everything, despite the pain and betrayal and 12 years of sacrifice, she still believed in helping people. She just believed in helping herself too now. And maybe, she thought, that was the real lesson all along. Sometimes the people we save don't save us back, but we can still save ourselves.